sort of urgent need to not return to the economy that we had prior to COVID. It's an economy that was inhumane, unequal, and putting unsustainable pressure on the planet. We have to build back better. But what are we going to build back better to? I mean, because our definition, our understanding, our ideas about what better might be very, very different to those in power. And so I think it's important to also articulate our vision of what better might be. I just want to share with you some of the top elements of what a wellbeing economy might be. And it's about connection, ensuring that we all feel that sense of connectedness to each other and having our institutions geared up in a way to deliver that. Participation, sense of efficacy is so important, and having our economies rooted locally and delivering what we really need. It's of course about restoring and regenerating the natural world. It's about fairness in all its dimensions. So all those different horizontal and vertical elements of fairness, and massively reducing that extraordinary gap between rich and poor that has opened up globally, but also here in Scotland. And ensuring dignity. This is one of the most, I think, important, most fundamental human needs, you know, helping people feel a sense of purpose, avoidance of shame. And those for us are some of the key dimensions of what our economy needs to be designed to deliver. It's an alliance set up to transform the economy so it delivers collective well-being. And this beautiful cartoon here in a way sums up some of the different interpretations. It's going beyond just focusing on the individual and encouraging them to focus on their subjective self-reported well-being, to be positive, to be happy, to be more resilient, and actually understanding the wider circumstances in which people live and changing those circumstances. And that is a question about the economy, and that's where the wellbeing economy is situated. We pat ourselves on the back when we slightly redistribute the gap between rich and poor, or we celebrate that there are more food banks providing food parcels, or that we've provided top-up wages to people who are working for their poverty. That it's no longer good enough to let the economy do so much damage and then rely on policy and charity to fix it. A wellbeing economy is about getting it right in the first place. And essentially, it's about getting the economy to do more of the heavy lifting. And there is a whole suite of changes that's required to do that. Redistribution, essentially designing market outcomes through things like cooperative business models, where the value share that's created is more equal from the beginning, rather than relying on redistribution. It's about things like the foundational economy that has really come into its own these last few months. It's community wealth building. On the environmental side, it's about taking a full account of the damage that our economic activities do to our precious natural ecosystems. I mean, Scotland has gone on a real journey, and it's hard not to be excited by the talk and the conversation in Scotland. But I often think if Scotland could bank its rhetoric, we would be in a much better circumstances than we were now, because there's a lot of good conversation. We haven't yet added that up to the sort of system change that we need. Just last year, a lot of those conversations, joined by a whole raft of other amazing organisations and thinkers in Scotland, have led to, I think, there's First Minister standing on that red dot of the TED stage and articulating so powerfully that the Scottish government and the economy needs a different purpose, away from gross domestic product towards collective well-being. And of course, she introduced them this partnership that I've been part of from the beginning, the Wellbeing Economy Governments Partnership, which is a collection of governments and civil servants supporting each other to collaborate and share and learn ideas about how do we go about this really difficult journey of putting well-being, collective well-being into economic policy making. Looking around the world, there is so much to be proud of in Scotland. Some people often say to me, Scotland's not doing enough. Yes, it's not doing enough, but it's also not doing nothing. There is a lot of initiatives to be proud of, and you can point to things like the revised National Performance Framework that puts well-being at the centre. You can point to the support for social enterprises and pro-social business models like cooperatives, which I think are such a vital part of the jigsaw. You can point to the work of Zero Waste Scotland, Scotland and the push for the circular economy, tentative steps such as the business pledge and the work on gender equality. So there are tentative steps forward in creating a wellbeing economy. I think that where we are now is that we need to, as a society, double down on those initiatives rather than dial them back. Journey with the idea of the donut. I was working with Kate back in 2012 when she first released, Kate Rayworth that is, first released the Oxfam discussion paper on essentially taking the idea of the planetary boundaries, it's this outer layer of the donut that came from the Stockholm Resilience Centre. And Kate and I were at Oxfam at the time, and she looked at that science around planetary boundaries from Earth system scientists and said, okay, we recognise that. You know, Oxfam sees the damage of the environmental damage and how it's pushing back the progress on helping folk lift themselves out of poverty. So she said, well, that's fine in environmental sense, but there are no humans there. And so she literally, as Kate is apt to do, took her pen and added in the social foundation. You've got the outer layer is the planetary boundaries, which Earth system scientists tell us we cannot transgress and go beyond, and yet we're already doing so in 4 of the 9 at a global level. But also the social foundation, we have to lift, for moral humanity's sake, lift people above the social foundation, and it yields this donut shape. And the key thing is we need the economy to be operating within that, because that is where it's safe and that is where it is just for humanity to operate. What Amsterdam have done is essentially taken that selfie, and they've looked at the social and environmental dimensions, and they've asked really questions around where is Amsterdam sitting, and asking, you know, what does it mean for us globally? What's Amsterdam's footprint in an environmental sense, and in terms of things like fair trade or slave labor, in terms of the social side of things, and how is everyone faring in Amsterdam? And these are some of the core questions that I think if Edinburgh or if Scotland is serious about asking, you know, what's our contribution to the global picture, but also are we delivering for enough people? These are the sort of questions that we need to ask each other.